So welcome to this episode of Menopause Conversations. My name is Amantha King. I'm a workplace menopause consultant. I'm also an executive performance coach, and I feel hugely privileged to have our guest on tonight. I'd like to welcome Karen Farquharson. Hello, Karen. How are you?
Hi, I'm fine. Thanks, Samantha. Thanks for asking.
It's honestly, I'm really delighted because when I think about the work that we do in our work, Karen, it's with you, people like you in mind. I am always starting all our cultural pieces of work when we talk about menopause, about talking about keeping women in work, about why it's so important to keep women in work. And so the reason I was really keen to get Karen on is because we wanted to talk about Karen's employment tribunal case. You won your case, didn't you, Karen?
Yes, I did.
I know that that's not like a huge moment of satisfaction, and it doesn't make everything all worthwhile, because actually one of the things that we know is just how traumatizing it is to take your employer through an employment tribunal. So I'm hugely grateful that you're willing to talk about this. And
Yeah.
Karen is very generous in that she wants to talk about this to make sure that people learn lessons, that both parties don't find themselves in this situation, and ultimately that people come together, people aren't suffering in silence, and she wants people to be heard. So Karen, thank you. Tell us a little bit more about you. Obviously we know that you've been in the press quite recently about your tribunal, but tell us, who is Karen? Tell us a little bit about yourself. What's your background before all of this happened?
Karen's nearly 50.
Okay.
I've been perimenopausal since started when I was about 42.
Okay.
And it just got gradually worse during lockdown. I have got 2 grown-up daughters, and I just got married this year again.
Oh, congratulations.
Yeah, but the poor guy's had me as a partner since I was perimenopausal.
Okay, so that is
He has
a
known
challenge.
me a wee bit before that.
Okay.
But wow, he's had to put up with some stuff.
Yeah.
I've got 3 dogs, so they get me out and walking and keep me busy after work. Don't know what else to say. I'm just this label of perimenopausal woman at the moment.
Yeah. And that's and in itself, it's not a great label, is it? You know, we were talking a little bit before, that's a long time to be perimenopausal, and I was telling you that I was perimenopausal from the age of 36. I mean, fingers crossed. I'm 52 now. I might be postmenopausal this year. We'll find out. I thought that was going to be me last year. So it's frustrating, isn't it, that during this midlife stage we suddenly become reduced to this title of perimenopausal. I'm a perimenopausal woman with all these things going on in my life, when we're so much more than that, aren't we?
You seem to lose your identity I felt that I've started to lose my identity going through this. But I was going crazy at times, just the forgetting things and the mood swings and the emotional side of it as well. I honestly thought I was going crazy at times.
And it doesn't help, does it, that society
No.
doesn't counter those thoughts and say, do you know, it's all right, Karen, it's not you. It's not you. This is something that's normal and natural, and it's a life course for every single person with female hormones on the planet. So don't worry. We're not getting enough of that, are we?
No. As I was told just to get on with it from my ex-boss.
So let's get into it, shall we? If that's okay. And for anyone watching, I have already asked Karen if there's anything that we can't talk about, and Karen has said it's okay to talk about the case. The case is finished now. So let's start with the end in mind. What was the finding of your case, Karen, from your employment tribunal? And let's say who it was against. Your employment tribunal was against your former employer, which was
Thistle Marine.
Thistle Marine, which is what type of business is that?
They're an engineering company based in Peterhead.
Okay. And so tell us a little bit about what was the actual finding. the conclusion of your tribunal?
The judge and the two, I don't know what they're called, people that sit on the side.
Yeah.
They were laymen, I think that's what they're called.
Yeah.
They threw out every single thing that they said. They threw it out. It was unanimous that I was discriminated against and I was wrongly dismissed.
Wow. And on what grounds was it unanimous? What were they saying about the environment in which you were existing?
What was said to me on the day that I had to leave the office for my own safety and my own sanity should not have been said to me at all. And he was shouting, he was bawling at me. He said that everyone gets the menopause just to get on with it. There was lots of expletives. When I had bad symptoms, I used to work from home because the thought of traveling in a car when I was flooding, it just doesn't work. And I had to travel an hour there and an hour home. So I worked from home. I had the capability of working from home, but he didn't support that. And they then assumed that I had resigned, and I didn't. I had put in a grievance, and they ignored the grievance and cut off my access to my laptop, to the banking, to all the account software, and just completely ignored me after that. They just thought it would go away.
So a real sort of psychological assault on you as a human being, really, in terms of just cutting all your communication, not communicating well with you.
I'd been there 27 and a half years. I'd known them like family. So that made it even worse.
Yeah. So can you tell us a little bit, because I would like people to really, really tune into, this could happen to anybody, Karen, couldn't it?
Yeah. Yeah.
Irrespective of what size of your organization, because what we're talking about here is the communication between people and that breakdown of communication, trust, compassion, understanding, all of those things. And there's not a manager on the planet who doesn't have a responsibility to interact respectfully with the people around them, whether they're a team member, a colleague, a superior, subordinate, whoever, the person on the reception desk, the person emptying the bins, whoever it is really vital that we seek to first to understand in order to be understood. And that's a phrase from someone called Stephen Covey. You know, we want to get the best out of people. We need to understand what's going on, not making assumptions. So I want to say up front, it doesn't matter if your business has 2 people in it or more than 2,000 people, this is relevant to you. So take us back to the beginning a little bit of when it started to deteriorate, because obviously 27 years is a long time to be part of something. It says to me, it wasn't just about the money. It says to me, you were probably invested as a person. You probably felt part of the whole setup. So where, you know, was your relationship with your boss previously to this, was it quite good? Did you enjoy a good relationship, or were there cracks there anyway?
We had, and there were cracks beginning to form. But when I entered perimenopausal, I was upfront and I told them my symptoms. And if I had appointments, they seemed to understand, but I worked with 2 directors, father and son. The son was fine. The father, the older generation, just didn't understand at all. He had the work ethic that you should come to work even if you're about dying.
Okay.
Very bullyish behaviour, and just a huge lack of understanding of what was going on. But from my side of it, because I felt guilty, because I was working from home, I would work longer. I would put in more because I didn't want them to think that I was taking them for granted. I invested every single thing into that company. I used to answer emails on holidays, texts on holidays. I would take my laptop with me. I was very, very committed.
And do you know, Karen, statistically, we've looked at this in our research, which we take into companies, on average, women going through perimenopause will work an extra 3 to 5 hours a week unpaid because they're concerned about either their performance, about doing the best piece
Yep.
of work they can do. So we have got people working extra hours unpaid and not being appreciated for that because they're struggling.
Totally. Yeah, totally. There should have been more support there for sure. Even if it was just a chat once a week, or how you doing, or nothing, just no support at all. They just wanted the work to be done, and with no allowances for what I was going through.
And how many people work in this business, Karen?
There was 21 or 22 in total, but only 2 females.
And did you have an HR function? Did you have anyone that you could go to, or was it really just the boss and his son?
Yeah.
And what was the interplay like between the boss and the son then? I mean, because it's like good cop, bad cop almost, isn't it?
It was good cop, bad cop, and that's what we used to say.
So really, it's just one person's opinion driving the culture of this organisation.
Yeah.
So we know that that's a learning point instantly, isn't it?
So no policy in place. No. No support in place. No understanding either.
And what was the point at which you put in your grievance, when it's sort of the trajectory of this really started to change?
So when we had the fallout on the Thursday, I took legal advice on the Friday, and the grievance went in on the Monday.
And what was the trigger for it? Just to say to people, what was the trigger for it?
Immediately after he said what he said, I said, "You can't talk to me like that. You can't do that." I says, "I'm suffering here." And no, he just said I used it as an excuse for everything. He said I used menopause as an excuse for everything. So I knew there and then it wasn't right.
No. Well, I'm so proud of you for, that's the moment when you valued yourself the most, wasn't it?
Yeah. I was dumbfounded. I was actually in hysterics with tears. I just couldn't, it's like everything had just had gone totally wrong, and it just crumbled down around me. I can't really describe it. It was the worst feeling ever.
Was it like an out-of-body experience? Could you, actually, I can't actually believe this is happening?
Well, I actually said I need to get out of the situation. So I left the office.
And in psychology, that is an absolute threat. That's your whole nervous system going, I'm under threat now. Like, there's a risk to my life. There's a risk to me and the ability to function as a human being. And I want people to understand that is the trigger for trauma.
Yeah.
And that's something you're still dealing with, Karen, isn't it? We spoke off air a little bit. You're still dealing with the trauma of that moment. Can you say to people, because what's the timeline between that day and today?
The tribunal actually took place in June, and that was a week. We had to appear in court. I was cross-examined for 2 days of that. On the final day, there was submissions, and the decision was made a month to the day. So in July, I knew that I had won. But from January, because it had happened, the incident in December, in January to June, to prepare for this tribunal was the worst 6 months ever. I've never gone through anything like it.
And can you explain to people what that's like? Because I need people to understand it is not easy to take your employer to an employment tribunal. We need people to understand the pain and suffering that an individual goes through through that process. Can you describe to us, without it causing you upset, Karen,
Yeah.
what that has felt like for you?
Well, I had to document everything that was said. Document with it was an HR rep that I used rather than a solicitor.
Okay.
And he asked for background. He had asked about if there had been any other issues that were worrying me at that time of how the business was being run. Anything else that you needed to know about the director that I dealt with, a bit of background of that, background on how long I had worked. Various evidence had to be submitted, which was going through old emails, WhatsApps.
Wow.
Then there was a preliminary hearing, and to say that it took a toll.
I can hear it in your voice. I can hear it in your voice, and it's not finished, is it? People sort of...
They had a counterclaim, which I'm not discussing that because but they were basically trying to cover themselves by saying, well, it's her fault that this happened, and it was all lies, and the judge threw out everything that they said. But because they said those things about me, you start to think, did that really happen? Did I really come across as that sort of person? And to be honest, I didn't want to be here for a while. I've never been so dark, ever. How they could, I still can't get over why and how they did that to me.
That genuinely makes me feel so sad.
Sorry, I'm not meaning to upset you.
No, and do you know what? This is not my story. It's your story, but I want people to feel the emotion of what that does to people. Because it seems to me companies may do whatever it takes.
Yeah, and that's what they did. They were trying to do whatever it took.
And that's just not right.
It's not right. You can't run businesses like that.
I had a conversation with Helen Tomlinson this week, who is the UK menopause champion appointed by the government. And she said, the bottom line is it comes down to doing the right thing.
Yeah, you need to do the right thing. The employees are helping businesses make their money and do business correctly, and then you treat them with distaste. It just shouldn't happen.
No.
Whether it be menopause or other illnesses, mental illness, anything like that. It's not just menopause. They've got to treat their employees correctly.
Yes, with the respect.
Yeah,
respect.
Totally with
respect. And companies that do that, because let's acknowledge there are companies that do that, and I am working with companies like that. I spoke to you a little bit off air. You know, we've got companies that have retained their amazing menopausers. We've got people who are stepping forward, men, women, transgender community stepping forward, going, I want to be a champion for menopause. I want to be a person that someone can come to and I can help signpost them. You know, we've got people saying we do the right thing. So I want to say there are companies doing that, but they are far outweighed by the companies that A, are doing nothing, B, are what I call sitting ducks, because they've got managers or leaders who have the same archaic attitudes of what you just described, where my mother got through it, my wife's not making a fuss, I don't see what the problem is, other than I believe you're a problem. But there is no place for any of those viewpoints, in my opinion, because none of them are accurate.
No.
So that's why it is a really generous thing that you're doing, talking about it, because what we're saying is, let's talk about, in your opinion, because really your opinion is the only one that matters, where could this have all been rectified? I mean, I know hindsight is a great thing. I like to think about the pre-mortem, not the post-mortem. If we could have remedied this at any point, what are the points where this could be remedied, so that we can teach people, Karen, in this conversation, that we can say, look, this is what you could have done something different. Give us a few time points where it could have been different.
Well, employer has a responsibility to look after their employees because they're given everything back. It's not just a number on a payroll.
No.
It's people's livelihoods, it's people's lives. I invested, as I said before, I invested a lot of my time with that company, and I just wasn't heard. They knew I was having problems. I've also got adenomyosis on top of my perimenopause.
Oh
So
my goodness. So very complex.
yeah, I added to my symptoms. Um, time, I think they should have been more flexible with my time as well. Because I had said I'll come up after I'd had the symptoms and I had been working from home. I then offered to drive up that day in the snow, and they should have just said, stay at home, work from home, it's fine. But they didn't. And the guilt of me staying at home, I thought I better go in, I better make the appearance. That conversation would never have happened.
And it's the pressure, isn't it? It's like, let's talk about flooding. So whenever I'm asked to do an interview, Karen, I never talk about a hot flash because I really want to shock people. I want to shock people. So I tell them about probably the most traumatizing symptom in perimenopause, which is flooding.
Yeah.
Now, you had that. I've had that. I couldn't leave home for 6 days. But fortunately, I wasn't working at that time. But I was then bleeding again every 16 days. I became chronically anemic, dizzy, couldn't drive. My confidence went through the floor. What was that symptom like for you? Because I think we need to bring it out into the open so that people understand what you were dealing with.
I just felt that I couldn't get up off my seat, because if I knew I had to get up, it would just come out of me, and it just wouldn't stop. And it was a urgency to get to a loo to make sure A, you didn't bleed through your clothes, and B, that you didn't bleed through onto your work furniture if you was at your work. I was speaking to a lady that's a teacher, and they are not allowed to leave the classroom to go to the toilet. And they've cut back on PSAs, and teachers are now leaving because they can't go to the toilet. So they're being embarrassed in front of the kids because accidents are happening. And I know that for a fact.
And this is the same. When we worked with the company that was featured on the British Menopause Society, we actually looked at what happens on factory lines, and the company were willing to listen to people's real life stories. I mean, what I'm hearing here is there was never a platform for you to talk as openly about what you were experiencing as you are now. And I have to say to you, Karen, that is one of the biggest issues and hurdles we need to get over. 90% of women who are going through the perimenopause will not speak to their manager about this. They are more likely to speak to a work colleague. 46% of people are more likely to speak to a work colleague than they are to their manager. So that tells us we have a problem with communication. Yeah. What was it that prevented you from saying, look, I have this thing that's happening to me and it causes X, Y, and Z? What prevented you or disabled you from saying that?
Oh, but I did say.
Right.
I did say that I had flooding. I did say that I had issues that they were investigating. It just wasn't listened to. So they just said it was an excuse.
And I know it's not an excuse. There's another lady who's done a video here on my channel called Catherine Neenan. And Catherine Neenan, really by her own reckoning, is really lucky to be alive. Her company was incredibly supportive to her, but Catherine didn't know she was having flooding. She had 2 episodes and she collapsed in her doctor's surgery. Can you imagine if that had happened whilst you were driving into work because you felt under pressure? You didn't feel psychologically safe. Now, psychological safety is part of health and safety. You didn't feel psychologically safe to stay at home. You felt there was a degree of presenteeism required. So you put yourself in danger, potentially. You put yourself under pressure and you turned up, and then that's what happened.
Yeah.
Utterly disgraceful on their part, isn't it?
Yeah.
But it doesn't reassure. It's not reassuring, is it?
No.
Because it doesn't suddenly make it all better that you won your tribunal case.
No, because it should never have happened in the first place.
No, so what would have been a reasonable adjustment? Let's talk about what could have been done, which could still have kept you as this valuable employee, someone who really is benefiting the business, because you were contributing enormously to the business. So what, in an ideal world, what, if we were to real play it now, what would have been a good outcome or adjustment for you? What would have made it work?
The first thing they could have done was apologise for not understanding, and then putting measures in place and doing what they could to retain me instead of just casting me aside and ignoring me.
And what would it, and because I often say to, because when managers, so let's see on the side of managers, particularly let's say we've got male managers who might be young, who've got no idea, never heard about menopause. What I always say is, listen, it's not beholden on you to come up with all the solutions. It is beholden on you to listen, to provide a safe space, and to be that person who's willing to collaborate with the person in front of you to find appropriate outcomes. So what would you have suggested if I was your manager and I was sat talking to you back in that situation? What would you have said to me would have been a reasonable adjustment for you?
Training for all the staff, whatever, well, every single staff, even the young apprentices, because education is needed out there.
Yeah. And is there a way you could have still been working despite the fact you were experiencing your flooding?
Work from home was achievable, yeah, but he didn't like it.
No. Was it because of archaic attitudes of thinking you'd be slacking off?
He did mention in the court case that, oh, she worked from home at times, but is she really working?
Oh dear. So complete lack of trust then.
Yeah. And there should have been 110% trust there, because I knew that business inside out, and he knew I knew that, and I knew how it worked. We moved premises into bigger premises, we got busier, and I felt that I had a massive contribution towards that. I was definitely taken for granted and undervalued. I see that now. I wouldn't have thought it at the time, but looking in now, I think, no, they've just made an absolute massive mistake there.
Yeah.
And definitely. It wasn't about the money, it was to make them be accountable for what they did.
Absolutely. And it's you did get awarded a payout, didn't you?
Yeah.
But the reality is, as we spoke offline, it's not about the money. It's about the injustice of it all, and clearing your name.
And I had to pay my own fees.
Yeah. And so this is what people don't realise, do they? So I mean, your fees, are you able to tell us what sort of fees do you have to pay to take an employment tribunal?
It was 30%. I was 30%, but the guy that I deal with depends case on case. He sometimes has an hourly rate or he has a percentage rate.
Wow.
But I was referred by a friend, so I got a discounted rate, but I would have been a lot more. So out of the 37,000 award, 15,000 of that went on fees.
And, let's talk about what it's left you with, because you're now left with the psychological.
Yeah. I'm very untrusting now. I do like my new work, but I've had to take on a much lesser role, which is less money, but it's less stress.
Yes.
I don't feel I'm contributing enough now than what I was before, if you can understand what I'm left with a void. But I do think the less stress route for the moment is the way to go for me at the moment anyway.
Yeah, because you need to heal yourself. You need to recover from this. You need to build yourself back up, because this is enormous. And, like we said before, it's going to take time for you, and the support you're waiting for, you're having to go on a waiting list for that, which is just, you know, it just elongates the pain, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And
yeah.
when we sort of, you know, you have made that statistic of 1 million women leaving work real, because you've brought the emotion of what that is. You're someone who's incredibly capable. That will never leave you, but you can't access all your capability right now because your nervous system, you're full of stress, you're full of, you know, that anxiety. So we have lost massive talent, basically, in the workforce. And this is why the government, you know, we've lost 185,000 women since the pandemic finished. So if we think we only know about you, Karen, because you've gone through an employment tribunal, how many other people could have taken their employer to court, but just slipped away because, do you know what? They just couldn't face it.
I've actually spoken to some women that has experienced that, and some ladies have reached out to me for help, pointing them in the right direction, and of course I'll help them any way I can, but they shouldn't be going through it in the first place.
No.
It is more widespread than I could ever have imagined. I actually didn't know this was going to happen. I knew the judgment would go public on the website, but that was it. It just snowballed from there, but that has helped me in a way to think that I hope that I'm changing it for other women out there.
I can honestly tell you, I mean, when you said yes, you would allow me to interview you, I can honestly tell you it will change the narrative. And we also know a fellow person going through this process, Maria Rooney.
Yeah, me and her are starting to chat. We're messaging each other back and forth.
Fabulous. So I love that. I love that. Maria Rooney's case is also getting that profile, isn't it? Because it's been taken on by the Human Rights Commission, because actually they believe there is a significant case to also be answered there. So, you know, we've already had, you know, I think the number of tribunals up until the middle of 2023 was another 16 already, you know, so the numbers have gone exponential, and menopause is being mentioned in more tribunal cases, sex discrimination, health and safety, you know, so people not being able to stay at work, the discrimination. It's a very, very grey landscape, isn't it?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
We don't know. So my question to employers, if you value your employees, you'll always be doing the right thing. And it's never too late to start, you know, don't wait for World Menopause Day to come around in 2024.
Yeah.
If you've got women in your organisation, you should be literally getting around a table with all the key stakeholders and going, what are we doing to keep the women in our business? What are we doing to keep people with female hormones here? What are we doing for our transgender community? What are we doing to make it psychologically safe, to make sure that people can have open conversations without fear? What are we doing to support people around here? And that's not HR. That's not just HR's responsibility. That's everybody, top to bottom, left and right.
Yeah, totally agree there.
So let's talk about, I mean, I salute you, honestly. I think it's so wonderful that you're able to share this with us. And I honestly do believe, and you'll see by the reaction to this when it goes on LinkedIn. What are you doing now? Because you are a force for good, and I think you're amazing. So what are you doing now? Even tonight you're off to go and do something, aren't you, as we're recording
this? Going to a menopause support group tonight, called Menopause Chat, and I'm now an admin of a menopause support page, and I want to take it further. I just want to do more to help people and just get the word out there.
Yes. So let's talk about that. Let's talk about that, shall we? Which is, you're aware that there's not really enough going on in Scotland, is there? Which is where you're based.
Yeah, I don't think there's the same amount of menopause training companies out there. There are there, because I've chatted to them. I've done a few training videos with them. Most I have found is they're going down the online route. We'll tick the boxes and we'll say we've got our certificate, there's the policy, job done. Scottish Government, I don't know what they're doing, but I'm having talks with people there. I've been emailing, sort of cold calling them with emails.
Love it. Love it.
Because I noticed on LinkedIn, it was more on LinkedIn than anywhere else, that companies are, especially for October, was posting a lot, but I think it needs to be every day of the year.
Yeah, menopause doesn't just happen in October.
No, you're right. But I do think it needs to be highlighted more, definitely in Scotland.
And I would be so bold, so I'm going to be bold. I'm going to say, how do we prevent managers creating more situations that you found yourself in? Because if we don't have a mandate for that now, if we don't have a strategy, then it's an accident waiting to happen.
Yeah. I think there are women out there being treated worse than me, because mine was a one-off incident, major incident. There were little incidents, but one-off major. And I just thought, I can't stand this. I know there is women out there are having to put up with this all the time.
And this is so true, Karen, because what I hear a lot of the time is people going, I'm going to reduce my hours. And the very first question I say about that is, do you know what impact that's going to have on your state pension? Because, you know, even taking a few hours off can take thousands off of your state pension. It can reduce your number of contributions. So your 35 years of national insurance contribution, it can take tens of thousands off of what you'll get in your final state pension. So we really need to protect women at a time when maybe they have gone complex lives, because there's family commitments, there's caring responsibilities. People might find themselves, you know, we know, don't we? Like you said, this is a time where it really stretches and challenges and can break your relationships. People might find themselves suddenly single income, families to support. What you don't want is that carpet rug pulling moment whereby your instability at work.
So when you're saying about reducing hours and part-time, that's exactly what I was thinking on doing with cutting back, because I just couldn't cope with it.
No.
And there was the support there to say, no, you know, work what you can, do your hours when it suits you, when you feel up to it. There was just no support.
No compassion by the sounds of it.
No compassion. No.
What has it come to when we can't be compassionate with one another, Karen? What do you think about that? I mean, have you found compassion in your new place of work? Have you found more understanding?
Oh yes, and a lot of respect as well. I think they're all scared of me now.
But that shouldn't be the case, should it?
No,
it shouldn't.
No, I'm just joking. They do fully understand, and there is colleagues there that are going through the same, and we just have our little chats and say we're not going crazy. We're all going through it together, and
how wonderful.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's really leveling, isn't it? Because we talk about menopause, we talk about getting it right, we talk about it's all about HRT. I don't believe it is all about HRT, actually. I think that's just one arm of a very complex octopus. The workplace is where the biggest negative and positive impact can take place for someone who's in menopause, because what we know is that stress will rob a person of their hormones, and that just worsens all the symptoms they're experiencing. So work should be a place where people feel they can thrive, not survive. It should be a place where they can be productive rather than feeling like they've got to be adding more hours in themselves unpaid. It should be a place where people feel they can be open, respected, and for it to be a collaborative approach, because it is a natural life experience for every person with female hormones.
Yeah, and they shouldn't be penalised for it.
Yeah, we shouldn't be penalised by our sex, our gender.
No. Totally agree there.
So if we can ask you And I know you're still making your own journey through this and coming out the other side. And like you say, it will take time. What is your hope for people, Karen? When you sort of reflect on this, what is your hope? Let's say in the next 5 years, what would you want to see for women who are in midlife, navigating perimenopause, postmenopause? What would you want to see for them?
Support.
Okay.
Especially in the workplace, because you spend, some people it's 30 hours, 40 hours. A good lot of your waking day is spent in an environment being productive for somebody else. You've got to feel the support there. You've got to feel safe, and you've got to know that you can openly discuss it. And as you said, not be penalised for your gender. We can't help what's happening to us, and we're trying our best.
Yeah.
We are.
We are.
It's just that all these hats we've got to wear, and then you go through this and you lose your identity. You think, who am I? What am I doing here? What do I want out of life now? And you start to, I never used to stick up for myself. I was the doormat. And I just thought there and then, no, I've just had it. I can't be spoken to like that, and it's got to change. And
so I'm hearing advocacy there. Advocate for yourself. Because that's what you did, didn't you? You advocated for yourself when it mattered most.
When it mattered most, I did. I stuck up for myself.
So can we have that as something for people in the future to, with the right supports and with the right information, like you're going to your cafe tonight, you're going to your meeting tonight. If someone is sitting there who knows actually what their rights are in the workplace, that the Health and Safety Act, that, they are covered by that, they're more informed then, aren't they?
Yeah, and they'll feel more safe as well.
Yeah.
They'll feel that they're valued in the business.
Yeah.
We've got everybody.
And that's it, isn't it? It's knowledge, it's information.
Yeah, knowledge, education. Right. I find as well a lot of women going through this, and they'll just say to their children, oh, it's just something mummy goes through. They need to know right from the start. They need to know from the get-go, this is what happens to a woman in a period of our life, and this is what could happen to you. Not all women get the same symptoms.
No.
But this is what your mum or your relative is going through, and they'll be more supportive of it.
So why don't we put a link in? So you and I spoke about this before we went online. So this is the Understanding Menopause booklet by the fabulous charity menopausesupport.co.uk. If you go on their website, you can literally download it. There's a QR code, and so you can be in touch with the organisation. They'll send samples to you, they'll send posters to you. There's things you can download. Can you imagine, Karen, if every person that we know got a copy of this booklet, which has symptom trackers, it informs them about everything? That's got to be a good start, hasn't it?
It has, yeah. Brilliant.
Well, I agree with you. Support in the workplace, knowledge and education for all. That's what's going to make a difference. Well, thank you so much for your courage and your bravery. Thank you so much for giving your time to talk about this tonight. I hope and know that you will eventually find peace by moving beyond this. And what you've done is in huge service of so many people, employees, but also employers, because what you've been willing to do tonight is show where things could have been done differently. But I believe not that we want to reduce what has happened to you, but it sounds to me like if there had been more compassion, more communication, more understanding, you and I may not have been on this call tonight.
No. But then again, there's a lot of women out there might not have, if it hadn't happened, it might have been somebody else, it might have been something worse. But I just want to be known for being the woman that stood up to our employers, and I want women to be empowered by it and take it on and feel valued, for sure. If that's the right thing
Well, you have said it brilliantly, and I could not add anything to that, so I won't even try to. All that's left for me to say is thank you, Karen Farquharson, for being so generous and speaking. I know we'll speak anyway after this, because we definitely want to be in touch. But I think this is going to be so powerful for people. So what we're going to do is we're going to put this out on LinkedIn. How can people be in touch with you, Karen? I'm going to put your LinkedIn, because you're on LinkedIn. So I'll pop your LinkedIn details. And we really want to encourage businesses in Scotland, or people, organisations in Scotland. Please be in touch with Karen, because you've got someone on your doorstep that can make a powerful difference for you. So why wouldn't you utilise her skills, abilities, capabilities? So that's what we'll do. Is there any other way that people can be in touch with you?
Could easy email me if they want to. It's Karen@farquharson.eu. You know how to spell it, Amanda.
I do. I'll pop it on the show notes for you.
Yeah.
And you can use this video how you like as well, Karen. It's yours.
Well, I'm definitely going to be sharing it.
And because it's so powerful. Yeah. But thank you so much for giving me your time. And I would like to speak to you again, because I don't think this is the end of your story. I think it's the beginning.
Okay, right. We'll see.
We'll see. I can imagine your voice will just get louder, and people will want to hear more about it, because you're not defined by what has happened to you. It will be an interesting part of your progression, but I can imagine we're going to hear a lot more from you, Karen, and it will be in ways that change what it's like for people to work as women, as people with female hormones. I think you're going to change the narrative for so many people.
Well, I certainly hope so.
Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.